Hello, good afternoon. This is Dan McGrew with iT2 for another edition of our digital transformation talks, all things SAP. Welcome, and we're glad you're here. I'm very excited today to have Matt Farmer with SAP join us. Hello, Matt.
Hey, how we doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Fantastic, and thank you very much for taking the time to join us today, Matt.
Pleasure.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you and what your background is, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Matt Farmer. I've lived in the great state of Texas for the vast majority of my life. I started my career in HR, spent about 10 years in technology SaaS solutions on the HR side of the house, and I have now been with SAP for going on my 4th year. I support a generalist role, and really what that means is anything and everything that's in the SAP footprint. I can essentially be the tip of the spear for my customers. Value workshops, recommending partners, solutioning, etc. So really excited to be here today. And yeah, that's a little bit about me and my background.
Thank you, Matt. Well, the great thing that, and why I enjoy working with you is that, you do have a diverse skill set and history with your clients that are all over the map, all over the different sizes. But one of the things that we've talked about and worked together on a little bit has been, the rise and growth solutions. And I know that, from our conversations with prospects, as well as new customers that have just decided to go down that path, there's a little bit of confusion about what's the difference in rise and what's the difference in grow. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rise has been a commercial offering for, a good handful of years here now. I can't tell you the exact date, but it's been at least more than 5 years, right? And Rise was really deployed and developed to take advantage of offsetting a lot of total cost of ownership for a lot of our existing on-prem customers, right? The on-prem or the Rise solutions that we're transitioning a lot of these customers to really has an extensibility and new Fiori interface, really a lot of capabilities that allow a level of customization based on your business process or kind of the secret sauce to the organizations that we work with. And really our Rise package delivers most importantly for the customers, again, that have some outside of the box requirements that might not kind of fit in a traditional business sense, right? Every engagement that we participate in, we come in agnostic, wanting to kind of determine based on the requirements what makes the most sense for that particular customer. Over the last 2 years, per your question, and some of the confusion that's kind of presented itself has been around our GROW package. And the GROW package was really developed in an effort to service some other industries, particularly professional services, some industries that really didn't require the level of nuance or customization, right? Kind of an old adage we have in some of the businesses we work with is, and you got to kind of be careful how you say this, but you're not that unique, Mr. Customer, right? The workflow or the way you go to market or the way that you might conduct a professional service engagement is really not nuanced from the other 20 other professional services organizations down the road. And so that level of customization really drove a lot of cost for those customers, and ultimately just, in my opinion, didn't make us the right fit. So SAP doing a great job of listening to our customers, then kind of evolved the existing GROW platform. And really the value behind GROW is you've got a pre-configured box that, a pre-configured box that comes out of the box. There's really not a lot of, the old adage of 18 to 24 months of deployment. Most of our GROW deployments are under 8 months, often 3 to 6 months, kind of dependable on the lift. But there's just a lot of, kind of specificity that we can also deliver with public cloud. As an example, if I have a customer today that is a Rise customer, and let's say they want to develop a retail side to their organization, they would be required to go customize all of those workflows, and that can get very expensive. Whereas we have our public cloud or our GROW offering, what that does is it allows that retail box functionality to come out of the box ready for the customer to consume. And what we find is that total cost of ownership is greatly reduced, and then you don't have to spend all those dollars on the customization that you require for your business. So in its simplest form, GROW in our head is a more of a template-based approach for customers that don't require a significant amount of customization. There's a lot of specificity as well on what industry you may serve. And private cloud and or our RISE offering is more about the organizations that must have the secret sauce as part of their process and or their deployment. And I'll kind of contradict myself a little bit, but there's also somewhere in between, right? Based on how we solution. But as a baseline, that's kind of the differentiation between the two. Hope that's clear.
Yeah, that does. That helps a lot. One of the things that about GROW is, I've heard you say in meetings several times that, if a customer's doing $50 million a year in revenue right now, with GROW, they can grow to, $500 million. Explain a little bit about why that's the case, and not having to go out and add a lot of hardware, whatever it may be.
Yeah. And I find this a lot with groups that just aren't experienced with buying SaaS tools, right? So the old adage of, SAP is too big for me, they have too much functionality, right? Really what we've done is we've made a commercial offering regardless of where you fit, mid-market, small business, medium enterprise, high enterprise, et cetera, right? So the offering, what it does is it gives you the functionality that maybe a big brother organization or an organization as you as a $50 million organization today aspire to be. What it does is it doesn't require these transformations 4 or 5 times to get you to where you need to ultimately be. So we still have all the functionality that comes out of the box from an S4 standpoint. And really it's about just turning on these modules as the needs arise within your business, right? So you've got essentially a footprint that can support what your requirements are today. And hence the name GROW can also support your requirements in the future. What we're also doing for some of our groups that might need some of that customization down the stream is that in the next couple of years, there won't be a lot of differentiation between our public cloud and our private cloud offerings. Now, it's going to take us some time to get there. It's a new code line. But at the end of the day, kind of depending on your project, we're confident in telling our customers that one of the biggest values of partnering with SAP is the future innovation. And the public cloud offering allows mid-market, small market, high market companies to take advantage of those innovations as they come and deploy them as they see fit in a model that's digestible financially for them as well. Right. So one more comment. So you as an organization should have access to the same tools as the organization that you aspire to be, but you get it at a price point that makes sense for your business. Sorry.
That's right. It's also with GROW, it appeals to far more industries than it has in the past. I mean, SAP manufacturing, you got to probably 100% going to use it, oil and gas, but this appeals to those that where SAP really hasn't been in the past. Is that true?
That is the biggest growth engine that I've seen, right? So, professional service, just to hit back on that one, Workday has done a really good job in that market, right? They've done a really good job of kind of tying that down. And to be candid, there wasn't competition. There wasn't other groups that were playing in enterprise that could offer an out-of-the-box solution for those guys. So very much so, right? So one of the opportunities we see is what are we doing to then educate these folks that hadn't considered SAP in the past just because we didn't have a commercial offering that fit where they're at today. Right. And so that's why there's a lot of wood behind the arrow when it comes to GROW, a lot of pushing because we didn't have something that really resonated for those groups where we do today. But that's exactly right. And then the reason it probably didn't fit for some businesses was probably due to cost. It's particularly when you go down market. So again, that alleviates that concern with the SaaS model moving forward.
Can you talk a little bit about the implementation process and how difficult it is? A lot of people, when we talk to them, I mean, they're scared to death to embark on an ERP project, period. If they've done it, they don't want to do it again a lot of times. So talk about some of the difficulties that you've witnessed or seen in making the move.
Yeah, so I could write a book on this. I'm sure you could too. But, I think having a partner like iT2C is half the battle, right? You need someone that's been there, done that. I think a lot of these organizations specifically around the governance when it comes to customizations, that's where I see a lot of these things go wrong. Every engagement, in my opinion, needs to be led by the business first and the IT team second. At the end of the day, if the process that we're implementing and or changing doesn't meet the demand and needs of the business, then why are we changing it, right? And I think a lot of these organizations get in these positions where they're not taking into account the North Star and or the goal of why we're here and what are we doing, right? And it sounds rather Captain Obvious when I say it out loud, but I think governance around customization, some of the best projects that you and I have been a part of have had a very tight governance around when or if we're customizing things. In fact, I've gotten to the point where I'm just flat out recommending, let's go with the process that's out of the box. And if it truly breaks your business the way that you think it's going to, then we can always go back and fix it. But SAP has 50 years of history. And we know from an industry perspective what you need and how you need it set up, right? And so we've got a lot of template-based approaches that reduce a lot of the custom code that is required or had been required. And again, I'll reiterate the governance associated with these projects, right? I think another thing I see a lot of is people wanting to replicate the same process in the cloud and or with GROW without really a clear understanding other than that's the way we've always done things, right? And I really struggle with groups that have that mentality because this is an opportunity to allow your business to improve on what the next 12 to 15 years look like with this particular piece, right? And so those are some things that I see quite a bit as well. Yeah, I think that's kind of at least what I kind of stand on the table and demand with all my projects is that we have those pieces in place, right? So, and then obviously I think the last thing that comes to mind and have a partner that has the experience and or expertise deploying what you purchased. I know that sounds rather obvious, but we've had a lot of deployments where we've got folks that just, hey, we don't have expertise on this particular area. We need to have that conversation sooner than later so that can kind of stop the music, so to speak. So,
sure.
Anyway,
one of the things that we've witnessed and seen a lot of times is even the decision is made, we're going to move forward, and they go through the implementation, they complete it, but there becomes an adoption problem. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we found you get people in silos and leadership doesn't quite do the job they probably should have done, and in hindsight would do differently, of getting everybody on the same sheet of music. You mentioned, for the business, and that's one of the things that we're constantly preaching. But if you have things segregated out and it's sort of certain things are optional, adoption's a big thing. You've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah, and kicking myself a little bit that I neglected that on the last comment, but yeah, I mean, PSA, don't buy stuff that you don't plan to adopt and or consume, right? Shelfware is not good for my customers nor myself, right? So what's fun now too is we have tools that we can run on the back end that will ensure adoption. We have tools that would tell us, hey, for some reason, Susie and Bobby keep routing invoices the old way, right? Okay. So there's a lot of tools that we have that are ensuring that the investment is adhered to from these customers, right? And specifically around the adopt and operate model. Something that I demand in a lot of my bill of materials ultimately is Learning Hub and some of the other tools that we have in our box that are, ground floor training that can really ensure people have access to job aids and or a workflow that would, create the adoption that we require. So I think it goes to is that partners, and I know you guys do a good job of this as well, but partners specifically, the change management aspect, right? We don't get done with an $8 million deployment that took us 12 months and then not have any type of, change management or address high level, demanding the consumption of what we purchased and broke our back to deploy, right? So it's definitely the point in a lot of projects where regardless of how well the house is built, if people aren't using the doors and the house, what's the point, right? So why did we build what we built? So I think a lot of what I see is people still adhering to the old ways. And again, we've got governance around that to make sure they're using what was just procured and deployed. But I think it does start with the leadership and or steerco kind of demanding those changes. And then the icing on the cake in my head is, it's one thing to demand it, but then what are you doing to bridge the knowledge gap, right? Are you holding a lunch and learn, bring in some Jason's Deli and teaching folks? Or is it all about, hey, go figure it out, right? So I think a lot of groups that take that piece as seriously as they have the rest of the deployment, they have a higher likelihood of achieving the ROI or business case that we determined fundamentally from the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. That's great information. One other question I have for you, Matt, is I know at Sapphire you heard about some really cool new stuff. Why don't you give us a commercial on that, please?
Yeah, so we announced a few acquisitions. I think the kind of flavor of the month is definitely all things AI. What we're finding in the SAP footprint is that it's actually making the experience more human for the end users. I think that surprises a lot of people. I think a lot of the understanding too on back to the governance, right, and what is going into our data model. I think delivering the clarity that we're only taking into account the things that touch the SAP footprint. There's a lot of misinformation in the environment and the market right now around what AI is or is not doing. But in its simplest form, we're making these experiences more human for our end users. We're automating tasks that might have taken 12 to 15 steps into a handful based on some predictive analytics, some things that we're able to see based on previous behaviors. A lot of our really cool use cases are in the HR side of the house as well. It just seems to be kind of a natural growing area for AI specifically. So we're pulling forward a lot of use cases that really, in full transparency, we've been deploying and or developing for years, right? It feels like, at least in my mind, I don't know if you have an opinion, that AI has kind of been this flavor of the month, but if you're just now developing and or pushing that, you're probably a little late to the show, right? So we announced some very exciting partnerships with NVIDIA as well on some code development we're going to be doing as far as some of the future deployment. Outside of AI, a lot of our conversation has been around our Signavio suite and what we're doing to deliver insights and more of a streamlined implementation, kind of what we were talking about earlier. With a lot of our customers that have these highly configurable ECC environments that haven't been updated or touched in 12 to 15 years, traditionally it's been very tough to start unraveling that, where some of our Signavio tools, or what we call our process mining tools, can essentially give us a yellow brick road of what a path forward with RISE looks like, right? And I think finally it's kind of what we've talked about already, but it's the RISE and it's the GROW offerings and kind of the crystallization of what that looks like and how that's really going to set the market in a position where we are continuing to lead the way. I love working for a company that invests roughly $4 billion quarterly in the innovations and solutions for our customers. One last takeaway is that I have all the confidence in the world that any tech stack demand that a customer needs can be fulfilled within the SAP footprint. I do think there's a unique aspect of how we deliver that, and that is something very unique to us. And I think at Sapphire, we did a really good job of painting that picture. I think a lot of these organizations, when they start considering the technical debt that they have, are starting to see more value in a single stop shop for any and all things when it comes to their stack, because they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to go customize these kind of best in breed solutions. And really they're generating a disparate stack. So anyway, I set in some good sessions that we're talking about how we're leading the way in that and kind of the pros and cons of that model moving forward. So
it's been pretty amazing. I started, as you know, in SAP back in 92 and sent a dozen people to the Partner Academy. I believed it was going to be the way of the future. And my oh my, to see the transformation and just the development of the SAP product and tool, it's pretty mind-boggling. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it's been pretty cool.
Even in my brief time, it's we're responding to the market. We're responding where our gaps are, like any great SaaS company should. And pretty soon, I mean, it's gonna be tough to punch a hole in us. We've got a good diverse line. We've got we're keeping our customers at the forefront of what we do and how we go to market.
Well, listening to them, I mean, that's as you mentioned earlier in the program, you mentioned that this is a result of listening to people that are your customer base. So that's great. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
I always love talking to you. You're just a wealth of information, and I know the folks that are going to be listening to this are going to appreciate you too. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day, Matt.
All right, you too. Thank you.